Hello, welcome to Saturday, August 25th. It is almost getting to be the end of summer, but hopefully you've had some wonderful experiences this past summer and continue to have many more as we go into the fall.
Yeah, there's a lot coming up. There's a lot that's already happened, though, of course, too. But for those of you who may not know, who are joining us today on Twitch or who are listening to us via Podbean or iTunes or any other aggregator out there, as well as on YouTube, we have TwitchCon coming up, actually, in, October?
October, yeah. I think it's like towards the end of October. I'm not mistaken. October
Yeah, it'll be in San Jose. It's going to be really good, I think. It's sounding really good. They just announced, actually, their weekend of panels. And, of course, there's going to be a ton of game developers there, a ton of game showcases and competitions. I know last year they had the big H1Z1 competition as well as PUBG competition. So it should be a blast. It's going to be really interesting. They're coming back to San Diego, actually, as well, because their first one was actually in San Diego. All the other ones have been everywhere else, right? Last one was actually in Long Beach, so they're bringing it back to San Diego as well. So that'll be pretty cool to see what they do and everything they decide to unveil, hopefully, and showcase, and just all the different kinds of people that you can engage with, from actual streamers to people behind the scenes of Twitch to people that work on games and just so much more. Or for a lot of these game industry corporations and businesses, things like, for instance, OBS, the people behind that, developers behind that, people behind so many other tools that you use like Pretzel Rocks and so forth. So it should be really cool, really good experience. And again, it runs from Friday to that Sunday. And as far as I know, if tickets are still available. So if you are interested, make sure to check it out. I think it's definitely worthwhile to at least go to it once, if not more. But of course, at least just once to get that experience in. But of course, talking about big game industry events, there's one that's actually ending right now as we speak, which is Gamescom, happening out in Europe. And let me tell you, the turnout. I've seen video footage and photos from Gamescom this year. It is intense. I've never seen so many people congregate in one spot. I mean, I thought TwitchCon was busy last year, and I thought that E3 was packed. But Gamescom is insane, and they're getting people from all over the world. And I have to say, there's been some really cool things that have been showcased and have been promoted at Gamescom, and that's exactly what we want to talk about here today. Specifically, 8 of pretty much the best games at Gamescom 2018. We wanted to share those with you, share some of the trailers with you and the information with it, and then share our thoughts on it and where it's going and not build up hype. Honestly, we're going to try to be as realistic as possible here. So we will tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly as best as we can. So I hope you're ready, because this is a special game edition. I know usually we talk about all things, right? Arts, entertainment, education, and so forth. But here, it really does cover so much, right? From a business standpoint, the gaming industry is really starting to see a huge boom, especially esports. So we're seeing that popularity increase. Actually, just yesterday, we went to a tea spot to get something to drink, and they had the Dota 2 League competitions up in their shop.
On the screens.
That's the first time I've ever seen that.
Yeah, you don't usually see something like that inside of a public establishment.
No, I mean, like, if anything, it might be like a soccer game or an American football game or something like that, or baseball. But no, it was the Dota 2 League Championship. It was so cool. It was so cool to see. And so we're seeing that also from an artistic standpoint, right? We're talking about storytelling. We're talking about cinematography and art design. There are so many elements that get put into a video game besides the fact of it just being something playable that helps you kill some time, right? There's so much more to it. And so we'll be breaking down all these different elements. So in a way, it's like any one of our other shows, right? But again, we're just really taking on 8 of these core games that were really pushed at Gamescom 2018.
Which is happening in Cologne, Germany. I believe actually today is our last day, so it's super extra fresh off the presses, as it were. And we took a look at PC Gamer's list of the 8 best games of Gamescom. And we're going to look at some of the gameplay from each one's. And like Evan mentioned, we're going to sort of dissect and talk about what we're excited about, what we're maybe not excited about, what we think of it, and so on. And we'd love to hear your comments as well in chat if you're watching it live on Twitch. All right. So the very first one is, drumroll, Cyberpunk 2077. This looks awesome.
Yeah, this has been long awaited for years now. Ever since people found out that CD Projekt Red basically bought out the rights for this. Like, people have been just dying to see something, right? And this year has been the year. First at E3 with a trailer, and then even more information and images being released for Gamescom. And again, people loved the Witcher series, especially The Witcher 3 and all of its DLC content, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, and for very damn good reasons, right? Very rich stories. The DLCs were, as far as I'm aware of, free. They came, like, over time they just released them for free to the people who bought The Witcher 3.
Wow, that's
awesome.
And
you know, just so much content at your fingertips, so much storytelling. And, you know, none of the quests really felt like bullshit quests, right? You didn't feel like you're running around like, okay, go get me this stick and bring it back to me, and then you'll get 1,000 XP. You know, it was like there was something about it that either impacted the world, impacted a segment of the world, impacted you. There was always something to it, right? So people, once they found out about Cyberpunk, just went berserk about it. And they, from seeing the E3 trailer, I'm going crazy about it too, because it just looks phenomenal.
And it's from CD Projekt Red, so, like, even if I didn't see this trailer, I'd be like, yeah, it's an awesome game. Just based on the Witcher franchise, of course. But, yeah, I love sci-fi. So we're going to take a quick look at it here, and we're going to kind of talk as we see the beautiful visuals. Dun. So, I know that you said that it was actually based on a story that was written Cyberpunk 2017. I know you had mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, from what I know of it, what I've read up on it, it was originally. And then, of course, now it being, 2018, they're like, well, the 2017 thing doesn't really work out. So let's push out to 2077.
We need hover cars, people. Come on, stat. Yeah, so this looks really awesome. It low-key reminds me of, like, Fifth Element vibes meets Altered Carbon vibes meets Mass Effect meets really a lot of different kind of awesome elements from a lot of different awesome things.
Yeah, well, when we're talking about, cybernetics here and cyberpunk, so of course, even Deus Ex, Mankind Divided, a lot of those vibes come into play as well. A lot of what we see just has that feel, that vibe, that sort of grittiness, but that sort of excitement over technology and what it can do.
Yeah, and it looks like I know that you can play as very customizable character. You can be a man, a woman. I'm sure there's skill trees that can really help you have a very unique experience. And it's interesting to watch some of this because wow, this is in game. This is like in-game footage. It's not even that they made a cinematic for it necessarily. So that looks incredible. It looks super real.
Well, and so with this game too, they're really pushing a couple core features, which they talk about actually in this PC Gamer article as well, where they touch base on the fact of relationships. Relationships will be a big thing. And you could choose, again, any sort of relationship you want, basically with anyone. And that's really impressive. And the fact, too, that, they said it's not all about the gunplay. Yes, you are a mercenary, at the core, but not every single quest or mission that you go on is going to involve a shootout. Now, if you want it to be, to go out on a shootout, by all means, you can do that. If you really, really want to, but it doesn't have to be. And there are other ways of going about things, and I really like that. I'm a big fan of, like, Deus Ex, of some of the gameplay mechanics in that, and like Hitman, because there are multiple ways of taking on a very specific situation, right? And there are ways of exploring the world in from different views, whether you're going through an air duct or, you're hiding around in a basement and going through the different systems there to try to get up to the third floor of this building. Like, I love the exploration aspect, and I love the aspect of just handling things in multiple ways. And it gives a lot more replay value. And also, it's great for streamers in a way, too, because, again, if you want to stream this game, you could pick different things that are vastly different choice-wise than someone else, and they'll want to watch just to see, well, what else is there? What other options are there out there? And it might then, of course, drive them to then go back, oh, I got to do this. I got to do this bit again. Hold on, wait a minute. I didn't know you could do that.
Hold on, I got about 3,000 more hours of my life. Hold up.
Yeah, I could put more into this. I could put more into this.
No biggie.
And but I can only imagine, though. I can only imagine the level of detail that's going to be in this game, just from what we're already seeing, and how big this game is truly going to be. And this is supposed to be open world, too. This is not some linear hold your hand across, from point A to point B. So I can only imagine. You think about all the people, all the technology that's going to be running in this game. You think about all the different animations that are going to be happening as you're just walking through. Probably a lot of them that you'll probably miss the first time through until you start playing through that area a lot more. You're going to see a lot more details. Even just like voices, characters talking while you're walking past, which is some of the coolest things, I think, in a game, to really immerse you in the environment, right? We saw this with The Witcher, too. A lot of times you do something stupid, the guards would say something and recognize you and be like, hey, start no brawls, don't do that shit. Start
no brawls.
That's right. All these other things. And so I can only imagine what they've done and implemented with the AI in this game as well. So this is not to get too overly hyped, but, just trying to base it off of games kind of similar to this, as well as the Witcher franchise overall, because they learned a lot from The Witcher, and that's what they said. They said they've learned so much from The Witcher, and they want to implement what they learned into this game. So basically, just think of Witcher on steroids in the future.
Oh, so this means that the main character in this game is not going to die because they fell off of a 2-inch ledge.
That's right. And they won't have a horse that you can summon, and it ends up summoning at the top of a mountain. You've got to wait for the stupid horse to run all the way down said mountain and to you.
But it does seem that you potentially have a car. So maybe it's more like a Uber Lyft situation, and you just call in and it's like a block down. You're like, motherfucker, come on, man. GPS shows me right here.
The car calls you. I've been waiting outside of this Wendy's for like 3 hours, bro. You ever going to come out and you're like in a shootout or something like that?
Oh, that's rough. That's rough. Yeah, when I first saw the first promo image that I remember seeing for Cyberpunk 2077 was kind of interesting. I was looking at it and I was like, of course, here's another overly sexualized, like, cyborg female that's like in her panties and she's bloodied up and someone's trying to kill her, or maybe she's trying to kill them, and I was like, ugh. But watching this trailer, I'm like, okay, there's a lot more to it than that. I guess that was just like a clickbait photo.
No, it was a teaser. It wasn't. She wasn't in her panties. She was in a dress and she was being shot at. But it was it was. And there were cybernetics coming out of her. They were really just trying to show the fact of, hey, look, it looks like a person. All of a sudden, there's something vastly different about her. And it's just kind of the introduction of probably some of the drama you're going to come across within the storyline. Because I do really think a lot of this storyline is going to have remnants of elements from something like Deus Ex, where we kind of see the othering of a certain group of people.
The othering, I like that.
That's going to be my sense. Or like a Detroit Become Human, right? where it's kind of like the people versus the androids in that respect. I think there will be some divisions that we will see because of the augmentations and technology that people utilize.
I can see that. Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, if it was a dude in his dress suit, that'd be okay too. It's just saying. But yeah, no, I am stoked for this game. I guess it won't be coming out for a little while. They're really still just sort of teasing us with it, as it were.
Yeah, well, they're really concerned. They don't want to leak out too much, of course, right away. They don't want to mislead people or make them think this went out, because they know people will get super vocal about this, especially on Twitter, which they already have, right? Because they've been waiting and waiting for this game. And, people are finally super excited. And they've received very positive responses from what they've released thus far, and they don't want to screw that up. And, there were a lot of concerns, actually, about CD Projekt Red originally anyway, because I guess some of a presentation that they were giving to investors, some of those slides or something got leaked out. And so, of course, they were talking about like monetization in there, and it scared a lot of people, right? Because a lot of people go, now, wait a minute, whoa. We understand we have to buy the game, and it supports you guys doing awesome work like this. That's fine. But when you start talking about monetization, a lot of times what that means is like an in-game shop and loot boxes and additional money that we have to spend. And we're not fans with that, right? Between the EA debacle, issues with Fortnite and their skins, PUBG and their skins, and stuff like that, like, there's a lot of drama around this, right? So a lot of people were concerned, but luckily, I guess, many of the individuals who represent CD Projekt Red have come out and said, don't worry, it's always about the players first, in that we're not going to take the tactics of other game developers when it comes to implementing ways to just make more money. That is not our goal. We know this will sell. We know people will want this game and do want this game. And we want to make sure, though, that we give them the game that they want. So that way they see that it's an investment and that there's actual value attached to it and not just empty promises. So, kudos to them for at least saying that. Now, what actually happens, I don't know. It could be a different thing. But I think from what we've seen from CD Projekt Red thus far, that would be a big change in character if they did implement something like that.
So somebody would have to acquire them, like, Microsoft or Disney.
Which we're seeing a lot of companies do, right? I mean,
right.
Compulsion Games was bought out by Microsoft. We also saw, what was the other? Microsoft bought out another game dev recently.
They've been buying them like
Ninja
every other
Theory.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're trying to compete with PS4, and they're like, well, we need some games of our own that only comes on Xbox. And of course, Xbox has had a horrible time with game releases solely for their platform, right? Because, like, for instance, was it Crackdown 3? We're still waiting for that game. That was supposed to come out months ago, and they're still showcasing the old playthrough and demos and stuff like that, like the old models and versions and whatnot of the game. There's been nothing really brand new that's come out, and several games like Scaleborn have been canceled because of either the scale was too big, pardon the pun there, or what have you. There was always like some sort of excuse, like, oh well, it just didn't look the way we wanted it to. It didn't turn out the way, so we just canceled it. So you build up all this hype, all this marketing, you spend all this money, and then you're just like, nah. So they've gotten a really bad rap for that. So I think they're trying to rectify that. They also have rights, of course, to Devil May Cry, the latest installment that's coming out, which was also showcased at Gamescom. So it's going to be for Microsoft Xbox only. It will not be a PS4 release from what I know of, which is really interesting, especially for Capcom, because usually all their games do come out for PlayStation that I'm aware of. So that's an interesting move. But yeah, we're going to probably see even more of it too as we go along.
It's like telling someone that you'll come to their party, you'll get dressed up, everything, you call your Lyft, and last minute you cancel everything and you just go back into your jammies and watch Netflix. So sad. All right, next up we have Dying Light 2. Now, I know you're a little bit more familiar with this Dying Light franchise than I am.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know me. I'm into the survival games. I'm into, like, the building and other kind of elements that I don't know. I just feel like make it a more encompassing environment. So yeah, I haven't played the first Dying Light yet. I own it. I just haven't got a chance to play it yet. But I've read up a lot about it and started reading up on this one. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It looks really good, and we'll see it here in just a moment.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I mean, I definitely, am a person who enjoys a good post-apocalyptic storyline. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see this as well. I think it'll be good. We can see some gameplay of it right now. First person, of course, because what's more terrifying than zombies? For me, first person.
And soaring through buildings. As for those of you that are listening on a podcast, right now what we're seeing is some of the gameplay where they're doing parkour, which is one of the big things that stood out for this game. Was the fact that the movement system, climbing system is all based on parkour. So you can easily traverse the world over, say, for instance, just running through basic climbing or anything like that. You could truly travel and traverse the world in a whole different way.
Yeah, and it's pretty neat because from what I understand, you basically, your actions, your choices actually literally change your environment and how the story plays out as well.
Yeah, and it definitely visually, I mean, of course it gives a Dying Light vibe, but also gives very much a Fallout vibe, which this is very much post-apocalyptic with zombies, though. But it definitely does have that sort of vibe to it. I can definitely see. I mean, you're looking at like basically the Earth taking over old buildings and people with ragged clothing and weapons that are made out of like street signs. In this case, the main character's holding what looks like a pipe with a street sign attached to it, like an axe, and another one here with a makeshift blade on a stick. And so, we see also that people are starting to try to create civilizations, different cities or villages or like compounds of people. And these, of course, will be the different factions. There's the Peacekeepers, and then there's another faction. But evidently, from what I heard, too, there are also smaller factions within that you can get good standing with. And that actually impacts that little section of the world, but also makes enemies in that location much stronger.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So it's kind of to balance it out. That way you're not getting a free ride. You get the perks, but just to know there are also detriments to balance it out.
And it appears that you're fighting for clean water is definitely one of the things that is important. Because
I know in the first one, a lot of it was about figuring out what happened. What happened in this area, this virus that spread out, and, you're trying to basically stop it, and I think save the doctor or something who potentially could create a cure for it, if I remember right. And so that's the initial introduction to the world, is like, well, what the hell happened? And now I feel like this one is, well, what happens next? So it's going to be really intriguing to see what happens. Now, I also did hear, though, if I remember right, something about them having... Because they have co-op in this game as well, which is really awesome. So you could do it single player or co-op. But from what I heard with Dying Light 2, supposedly, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I thought I heard that they would be doing some sort of battle royale or some sort of game system like that within the game or something. I'm not too incredibly sure on that. But I've heard like whispers of it. And I know a lot of games are trying to include that battle royale type game into their main game as well, which is interesting.
Thanks, Fortnite.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot of people scratching their heads going, really? We're going to still do this? Like, can't we just stop? Like, just be you. Like, that's why we liked you in the first place, Like, just be you. Like, Dying Light had a really strong following and still does. And people have put hours upon hours into it because it's a survival-based game. So you could do so much more outside of the main storyline. You could fix and repair vehicles, ride them around, take out zombies. You can explore. Like, there are tons of elements in these type of games that to add something like a battle royale or something like that, it just really isn't needed. Or if you're going to do it, do like a little side project and release it like, as a free-to-play game on Steam. And that can help promote your main game with all the storyline. And that way, too, if you want to put in loot boxes or stuff strictly for outfits or skins, really, then fine. By all means, do it. You can, right? You put out the free-to-play game. You got to get money somehow. But, just to put it in with this game, if that's what they're actually planning on doing, I don't know. That would be frustrating. Again, you don't have to play it, though. It's just there. But still, it just seems weird and out of place. But
Yeah, it's a way to get people, though, I'm sure, to at least click on it, as it were. I'm actually very interested in seeing what the crafting looks like, if you can build your own base, that sort of thing, which is something that I've come to expect from survival games. And I think that will be really cool, because obviously the weapons look makeshift, DIY, but very intricate at the same time. There was one that actually looked like it had like cables running on through it. It reminded me a little bit of Horizon Zero Dawn, so anytime that comes up, I have to be like, ooh, what's that? What's that? is that a Banuk weapon? Is that what that is? But yeah, I'm excited to kind of get an overview of that, sort of like, what do the menu systems look like? Is there base building, that sort of thing? Obviously, if you play co-op, I would imagine that there's some sort of shared resources or something like that too, if that's how it comes to be. So.
Yeah, I know. We actually, so for Humble Bundle, which we're partners with, actually, and anytime if you want to check out Humble Bundle, they have amazing deals on games and a monthly package where you pay like $12 for like 4 or 5 games. And it's truly incredible if you're a big gamer. And plus, proceeds go to many charitable causes, which is awesome. So we ended up briefly purchasing How to Survive and How to Survive 2, which I guess was a game that originally started on the Xbox as an indie game and grew quite a bit, got a lot of popularity, so they put it onto Steam. And we've been playing that recently. It's basically like a top-down third-person survival game, but it's got kind of the vibes in a way of Dying Light. The mechanics for sure aren't as technical by any means, but it's a very fun game. But in that too, at least in the first one, they had some issues when it came to co-op, right? They had issues where some people would get quest items, other people would not. So it's that became kind of a pain, and it is kind of a pain because we're still playing through it right now. So yeah, hopefully, but it sounds like they fixed it in How to Survive 2. So hopefully other companies have kind of figured out their stuff, especially as big of a game as Dying Light was and is. Hopefully they figured out a really good system for co-op and have made it very, very smooth.
You hear that, Dying Light 2?
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, it'll be cool to check it out, though, for sure. At least the first one. Like you said, we have it. Might check out some gameplay of it as well.
Yeah, and it says here, let's see here, just kind of reading through the article, which is from PC Gamer, highlighting some, again, we're talking about the top 8 games, at least to PC Gamer, that were at Gamescom 2018 in Cologne, Germany. And they said, too, that the world actually changes around you, which is a huge thing as well. And I'm a big fan of that. Every single action has an equal or opposite reaction, right? Newton's law is right there for you. And so with that, the fact that you get to see the domino effect of your actions is awesome. And I love that in any single game because that not only is the development process long and arduous as is, but let alone someone's going through with a fine-tooth comb, basically, peeling back the layers and go, okay, how does everything connect? And then we have to make sure to tell all the different systems running to make this game run for you to be able to play it like you can. We got to tell this system how these connect, what kind of reactions or actions should be taken once they're connected. I mean, there's so much depth to games like that, and I really give props to developers who can do that. And so this is really cool that they're also including this into Dying Light 2. And I'd be really excited to see how much of an impact your actions take, right? And, between, like I said, too, this is going to get people watching other streams. It's going to get people wanting to play this more and more because they want to see, well, what is that other half? What is the choice that I didn't make? How does that impact the rest of the world? Does it really have an impact? Sometimes we get told that in games, but it never happens, right? Or like someone just like starts kind of giving you random dialogue like, you're an asshole for doing that, or oh, you saved us, praise be, woo. And that's about it. But there's no games that actually really change the environment per se, right? So I'll be really, really, really interested to see what kind of impact on the world your character can actually have.
Agreed. Next up on the list is Life is Strange 2.
Which is really just taking a camcorder, going around a mall or shopping center or anything like that, and you can basically see how strange life really is anyway. So,
I mean, life is pretty strange. Agreed. Touch Me 90 says definitely a lot more work and detail that people don't give credit for in these games. Agreed. Yeah, we just watched a little bit of Cyberpunk 2077. 2077, yes. And that looks like a lot of people did a lot of overtime.
oh yeah. When he says too, if you're in game, like if you were to live in New York and it was raining in New York right now, and then it could do it in the game, actually.
Real world weather. Oh my God.
So actually, Escape from Tarkov, also known as EFT, is a survival-based first-person shooter. Right now, it's not open world at all. It's kind of more like a Warframe-esque type situation where you go into missions and come out. But the detail's amazing, and the amount of focus and attention they've been given this game's amazing. But supposedly, because this happens in Russia, supposedly in the area, if it was to rain or be cloudy or be sunny, it's supposed to actually reflect the weather as it is right now.
No shit.
Supposedly. And again, is it 100% accurate all the time? Potentially not, right? I mean, of course, this is something that really doesn't happen often in games. But then again, that's a multiplayer game. If you were playing a single-player game and going through a storyline, I mean, damn, that would be something impressive for sure.
I would imagine that, of course, then you have to be connected online to
in
get
some
that
form, yeah.
sort of real-time change. So if you're looking for a game where you don't have to play online, then maybe you're not getting the real-world weather. That's too bad. So Life is Strange. Let's take a look at the... Life is Strange 2, I should say. Take a look at this trailer that they got going on. For those of you that are not familiar with Life is Strange, basically you play as a teen going about her life, and she discovers she's got some powers. Well, don't want to spoil too much. And basically, again, your choices define your environment, your reality, and everything like that. It's definitely story-driven. From what I remember, not, there's no, like, a lot of shooty gun action or anything like that. But
that's the official term, shooty gun action.
That's right. And so this one follows, I believe, one of the other characters, and something happens, and now he has to take care of his brother, is what we're getting from the trailer, and everything like that. So it'll be interesting to see what the actual story is. Again, it is what I probably would say is a teen drama. And, I know that in Life is Strange, I enjoyed the gameplay mechanics. I played a little bit of a demo of it, and it was nice. But I can't say that I was really into it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're a teenage girl in high school, right? Going through classes and stuff like that. So for one, if you're not a teenager, but also if you're not a teenage girl, sometimes that can be hard to associate certain elements of the drama and the teen angst and stuff like that with you as the player. Now, again, there are some people who have been much older and have really liked the game, though, because, again, if it has a good story, good, strong mechanics, it brings something a little bit different, then, yeah, of course, it can definitely engage anyone. But overall, I definitely got the same vibe, because I remember watching you play the demo, and I was just kind of like, I mean, I appreciate what they were doing. To me, it just was not something I was personally interested in. But again, that's just us, but many people have enjoyed it, and there's a reason why there is a Life is Strange 2, of course. And, you go to, for instance, a bookstore. Yes, bookstore. I know they exist.
I love bookstores.
Crazy. It's crazy.
They're
Barnes & Noble. But you go into one of those, and one of their biggest sections nowadays seems to be like the teen fantasy and everything, and dramas.
Shit, yeah, that was new.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge, massive section because it's building popularity, right? I mean, we had films, for instance, like Twilight, take it as you will. And many others, though. The Maze Runner was based off of a teen novel. and many of these other big films. And so, again, these books are building up popularity with young people, which is awesome. And when I say young people, I mean under the age of, like, 18, for example. Though, again, it's never stopped a 35-year-old from reading those books, too, I'm sure. But
or Touch Me, Nancy.
Or Touch Me, Nancy, if you're Touch Me, Nancy in chat right now. But, overall, though, I think that's why they're starting to incorporate it into games, right? Because they're seeing, well, films are doing well, the books are doing well. Let's try to make something game-related that kind of incorporates all that, right? Let's take that storytelling and those elements that seem to be doing well in these books, in these films, and implement it into a game, right? And especially with Life is Strange, you're going to get a lot of cinematics and a lot of different ways of telling a story visually. So I think this is a great platform for them, and it'll be interesting to see how well this does. Again, it's not something that I personally have on my bucket list to play, but I definitely am intrigued on the response from people and the people who have really liked the original and the DLC, what they're going to think of this game as well.
I do remember I thought that the game was really well executed. It had good polish to it, if you will. It was a complete finished game. I don't remember, as I was going through the demo, finding bugs. Obviously, I only played the demo. But it was really cool, and I liked the way that the puzzles were there. Yeah, right. It was just the storyline was just not something that I was personally interested in, but I thought that the game was solid. And I really enjoyed the details that they put in. The visuals were really nice. The audio, the voice acting, everything was really on point. And I think that they actually did a DLC to Life is Strange, if I remember correctly.
They did, what was it, Before the Storm?
Before the Storm, that's right. And so, yeah, they've got something good going there. So I'm excited to see that they're continuing to develop that and taking it into what looks like new territory in terms of storyline, which is good.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting, too, actually. I mean, you don't get to say this a lot, but it'll be actually interesting to see how this game performs with the protagonist now being a young male over a young female.
Which is funny, because I feel like most games are the opposite.
Exactly. That's what I was saying, yeah.
They start off with this strapping young white heterosexual lad, and you're like, great. I guess I will play like that person again. One of these days we'll get some diversity going, which a lot of some of the games that we'll be talking about actually do have some more diversity as well. But so they're gonna make a Horizon Zero Dawn with a dude, huh?
I don't know. We'll see what happens there.
I hope not. Aloy for life. Anyways, next game.
This one is interesting. It's called The Shortest Trip to Earth. And honestly, it is basically FTL, Faster Than Light 2.0. If you ever played Faster Than Light, it was a game that came out, for Windows quite a bit ago. And then it all of a sudden gained a big following, and people started playing it. And there were a shit ton of people who were streaming it here on Twitch as well. And, basically, it kind of reminds me a little, in a way, of Fallout Shelter and stuff, where you can see through the building, or in this case the spaceship that you're in, and then you can kind of control what people are doing and what's happening in the ships. And it's real-time strategy. You've got to take on different ships and enemies and find different resources, and it's survival, but it's just a new way of presenting it. I don't know. It's interesting.
A lot of reading too.
Yes, it is a lot of reading, a lot of trying to figure out what the hell you're doing, where the hell you're at, what is what, because it's a lot of new elements, right? Because they're going for that sci-fi, brand new everything kind of look to everything, right? New ways of implementing technology and what it can do. And so it's going to be a bit of a learning curve, I think, for many. But because I think FTL was so big, I think this game especially will be just as big and hopefully pull and garner the attention of those that played FTL.
Yeah, and I like the graphics. I think that they're kind of cartoony, but kind of not too cartoony. They're very colorful. You can zoom in and zoom out, and of course the ability to customize, I think almost everything, will be something that draws a lot of people to it as well.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, if you want something that isn't potentially going to completely kill your gaming PC if you don't have that strong of a gaming PC. And if you want a game where you can, in a way, have moments where it can be pretty chill and other moments where all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, red alert, but not in the sense of like 360 first-person shooter type of style, then this is going to be potentially a really good bet, at least something to try out. We don't know what the price will be when it releases, but we do know that it's out in early access as of later this year. So I guess time will tell on what will actually happen when that early access version of it does come out.
And this game reminds me a lot of the vibe and the feel of games that seem to be very popular nowadays, like Stardew Valley and I can't think of a whole lot because they're not typically on my bucket list either to play. But that sort of like project management games is what I like to call them. Where you've got a lot of moving parts at once, but it's a little bit, the graphics aren't, you're not first person, you're not third person, you're not even in 3D, and you often have like a top-down view. You can go to different areas of what you're looking at and work on different things. Like you said, Evin, if sometimes you want to just do something chill, you can farm or grind something for a long time or customize a certain aspect until you're sick of customizing it. Or if you want to do a little bit more intensive action, you can, have space battles and stuff like that. So, but I definitely know that there is a market, right? A need, a demand for those types of games. So I'm glad to see that somebody else is taking up, the FTL mantle. I mean, I love spaceships, so I'm not going to complain about chit-chatting with alien leaders. So that's really cool. And like I said, I really like the graphics. It's a nice break from some of the doom and gloom that we see in a lot of video games as well, which I think is another aspect that I think people are drawn to as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just a different kind of vibe, something brighter and nice to look at. Hell, we were just talking about CD Projekt Red. For Blood and Wine, the last expansion to Witcher 3, everyone was so hyped about it because we're in Toussaint, right? And everything is so vibrant and colorful, and it was just so very different from the other places you could travel in the first two games. I should say throughout the whole frickin' franchise, but especially Witcher 3 and then Hearts of Stone. And so, this was huge, and people were like, oh, it's so beautiful, and it's supposed to be fantastical, right? It's supposed to feel like a storybook in a way, and they were kind of making fun of the storybook stories and whatnot anyway. So that was the goal, but people were so enamored by it. And there are other games, too, that are trying to go off that. I mean, you look at the art style of Fortnite even, or like the early access survival game Rend, where everything's brightly colored, or Dauntless even. They all have kind of this similar art style, where it's just different enough, it's just detached from realism enough, and it's brightly colored, and just, there's a lot of fun to it, but doesn't quite detract from the action happening. And I think there's a lot behind that, and it's nice to have that kind of variety.
Exactly. And Touch Me Nancy says, look at Undertale. It wasn't a super high quality game, but the game was amazing, especially the soundtrack. And that's true, too. There's a lot of other aspects of games that, not that they go unnoticed, but that there's some developers that put a lot of detail and care and love into other aspects, like soundtrack and the visuals and all that other stuff, too, that sometimes we forget about, ironically, I think, when we are watching, when we're immersed in a game that we love everything about, to then call out certain specific things that you may not think about when you're playing the game, like something like the soundtrack. But that, that's another way of getting the word out about the game also, because now that can be shared out on different platforms, and you can introduce different kinds of people who maybe wouldn't have played the game otherwise, because they heard the soundtrack. I know there was a game, and I don't remember the name of it currently right now, Evin, but I know that you really like the soundtrack of it, and you're like, I kind of want to play the game even though it's not my type of game, just because the soundtrack was really good, and it was kind of like a 2D.
Oh, yes. Oh shit.
It was a long time ago. Probably about a year ago.
I'm like looking at my phone now going, okay, I know I have this music on the stuff. Oh.
But the music was so good that even that can actually get you into the game, even though that game may not be up your alley.
Paper Sorcerer.
Paper Sorcerer. There it is.
Super indie game from the New England area, actually, if I remember right, or East Coast for sure in the U.S. And it is a 2D based dungeon crawler. And it was so unique because it was supposed to be like as if it was taking place on the page of a book. So everything was black and white. There was no real color or anything like that per se, depending on where you were at. And yeah, it was just really neat and different. And yeah, the soundtrack was very well done, considering the fact it was such a small indie game project. I was just impressed by how much detail they tried to put into the game that they were working with the budget that they had. So.
Kiki Slider says, Toussaint was bubblegum and lip gloss. I loved it. That is a great description of it. Yeah, because I remember watching you, Evin, playing the other Witcher games, and I was like, wow, it's kind of drab. Like, it looked great, but it was also like, oh, sad. And then when you played the DLC, I was like, this is beautiful. I want to play The Witcher right now.
Yeah, like, I feel like the original zone's very much a reminiscent, of course, of, like, England, right? And certain parts of Eastern Europe, like Poland and what have you. And then all of a sudden you get to Toussaint, and it's like France meets Italy meets, like, just this bombastic burst of Renaissance. And it was just like, whoa, completely amazing, but very different from Geralt, which is perfect because he stood out like a sore thumb.
I mean, he was funny, so that was good.
That helped.
He was hilarious. He was hilarious. Talking about another gorge game, and that's right.
You're going to gorge yourself on this game, is that what you're saying?
I might, actually. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Now, I'm not really, I haven't really... Well, not really. I haven't played any of the Assassin's Creeds. I've only ever watched them. I know you, Evin, have played a few.
Yeah, I've played
just a few.
1 through 4.
But this looks gorgeous, of course. Not that we would expect anything less from Ubisoft. I would imagine, right?
Their worlds typically are fairly well done.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some of this as we talk. Look at that. Blues, oranges. It's gorgeous. So this story, as far as we can tell, takes place during the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta, which is about 400 years earlier than the timeline of Assassin's Creed Origins.
Mm-hmm.
So we're interested to see what is the storyline. All we hear in the trailer, of course, is that you have to save us. You're the only one who can. But if the assassins were created in
400
Origins,
years later,
we're thinking that maybe this is the story of the Templars.
Yes, because and again, this may be semi-spoiler. I don't really know. I mean, it's out there in articles, but from what we understand is that, you get cast out as a boy, you come back as a soldier fighting for Sparta, potentially, from the way it seems, and that the spear you use, the blade of it is actually a piece of Eden. And if you know about the game, of course, those pieces of Eden are what the Templars want to control humanity, and what the assassins try to keep away from the Templars so that humanity can really have choice, which to them is freedom. And so it's a good possibility that what we're actually seeing here is Assassin's Creed Templar origins in a way. And
that's funny.
Of course, if you think about it too, and this was actually an author that pointed this out, or a writer, a journalist for I can't remember. Was it the PC Gamer or?
No, I think it was somebody else.
It was another platform, but what he had said was that the Templars are very strict, right, and very coordinated with their attacks. And that would make sense, as Spartans were also known for that as well. They were very structured, very militarized, and knew how to fight. And Templars do as well. Now, of course, in Assassin's Creed Origins, they're not known as the Templar Order yet. They're known as just the Order. And Bayek is then the ones that is the founder of the Assassins that we know of from the original games of 1 through 4 and what have you. So that's our guesstimate of what's actually happening. Otherwise, I was scratching my head going, what the fuck? There are no assassins. The only mention of assassin that we know of thus far, which not a lot of the story has been leaked out yet, has been the fact that there is a skill tree that's called assassin with a lowercase a. Otherwise, you also have warrior and, was it hunter?
Hunter, sure, yeah.
or something like that, and that this is going to be even more RPG-esque. Now, the one thing, though, I heard recently, and I don't know if you've heard this too, and I mentioned this too, I think, a few days ago, was the fact that people are actually a little worried about this game. And the reason why is because some people felt that with Assassin's Creed Origins, it was gorgeous, the fighting felt good, there was just so many good elements to it, but there were so many times where you had to grind to get to a certain level to unlock a quest. And they felt like they were constantly grinding to get to the next quest, and they hated that feeling. And they're concerned because Ubisoft has announced that this world and what happens in this world is going to be even larger than Assassin's Creed Origins.
Wow.
So they're like, great. If there's more to do, does that mean I'm going to have to grind more? Now, I think some of that, though, is because you will have ship battles again, right? What everyone loved about Black Flag is the fact that you're going to have ship battles once again in Odyssey. So we see some of it in the game trailer, too, and it looks pretty interesting, I have to say. I'll be intrigued to see how they incorporate it.
I also think it's cool that, you know, if the Templars are, of course, about Orda and whatnot, the trailer pushes a lot about how there's so much chaos in this world. So it only makes sense that, yes, of course, the Templars are like, we gotta get this shit on lockdown. Like, too much going on. So I think in a way, too, if this is the story of the Templars, it's actually... I think they're doing it pretty smart because I think it'll humanize them in a way and make them likable, if that's possible. Again, I don't know a whole lot about the other storylines of Assassin's Creed, but, you know, if we hate the Templars, right, this could be a way where we're like, oh, maybe it's not so black and white.
Yeah, we could see a little bit more into it. Now, of course, this wouldn't be the first game where you could play as a Templar for Assassin's Creed. There have been many smaller spin-off games of Assassin's Creed where you could play as a Templar, or you start off as an assassin and then switched over to being a Templar. So it wouldn't be the first time, but this could be an actual real in-depth look at how it formed, why it formed, and maybe some of its original purpose. Because again, of course, with anything, over time, something can be corrupted or twisted to work for someone else's benefit. So it'll be intriguing to see what is it really about the Templar Order, and why they started, besides just world domination, controlling the minds of everyone. Was there something more to it originally? So if that is the case, and this is the origin of the Templars, it'll be really fascinating to see. If it's not, then I'm going to be going back to scratching my head going, why the fuck does this have Assassin's Creed name attached to it besides money? I don't know.
I mean, may I point to Exhibit A called Mass Effect Andromeda? Anyways, moving along. Actually, you know, the one thing I'm really excited about this game, because it does look really great, is that you can also play as a female character.
Nice.
So you can either do Cassandra or stick with Alexius, I believe his name is.
Alexius.
So if we do end up playing it, I might just be the one playing it. I'm just saying.
So, you know, and we just talked about, of course, battling as a Spartan, from kicking to shooting out arrows, shield bashing and whatnot. But now with our next game, we're going to be talking about guns, more guns, explosions, and tanks.
Dang.
And this is, of course, what we're talking about is Battlefield 5.
There it is. In-game footage. Looks amazeballs. I have not seen any of the other Battlefields, so I can't say too much about the previous ones, but this one looks fairly well executed. I'm impressed.
I mean, it looks beautiful, of course, though, I don't know. I mean, it depends on the type of gamer you are. Like, for me, I've seen some of the other Battlefields, and to me it felt very hectic, at least in certain levels. I can't say always. But for certain levels, it felt so hectic. There was so much going on, which, again, in war, that happens, right? You've got bullets spraying everywhere. You've got bombs. You got to watch out for vehicles. All this stuff is happening, right? So, yeah, it makes sense. But, you know, for me, it's very hard. Like, it's almost anxiety-inducing to see sometimes some of the gameplay from Battlefield because of how crazy it is. But, again, for some people, they thrive in that. It becomes an adrenaline rush. And, you know, it takes a lot of skill in a way to be able to keep track of the enemies in front of you, behind you, above you, to the sides of you, who's your team, who isn't your team, keeping to your mission whilst, getting pushed back and then pushing back. I mean, there is a lot to it. And with really good teamwork, of course, games like this can thrive. Now, of course, where it doesn't is when you have shitty matchmaking or where you can't get good teams together and it just becomes a mess, just an absolute mess.
I mean, to be fair, that is war, right? Chaotic and crazy.
Mm-hmm. And again, this behind it is, of course, DICE. And DICE is known to be a very good developer of games. Has beautiful graphics, is very good at the shooters. And stuff like this, is what really inspired games like Battlefront. Like Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 that we've seen. Like, you look at them and it's like, yeah, this is like a DICE game. This is, it's their feel, their look to it. Like, you just look at it, you could tell, yes, this is DICE. So they've really, I guess in a way, gone as far as they could with how they do a game like this. You could definitely see their style. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what actually happens when you get out into the battlefield, right? How does matchmaking work? How do servers hold up? And just how does the game feel overall, So it'll be interesting to see. And again, I'm sure it's going to be just as chaotic. We saw some of the gameplay footage there. Completely bananas, right? Bullets flying from all directions, bombs blowing up everywhere. But again, if you're really into being a history buff with war and how it's worked out, or maybe you are, let's say, a veteran, and that's just what you know and you're familiar with, this might be something that you could be very at home with. Or again, as we know, though, there's things like PTSD. This might not be the best game for you either, depending on what you've experienced,
Yeah, the triggers would be kind of all over the place, including even the sounds, I would imagine, as well. It's an interesting, I feel like certainly in a lot of these games, I feel like we glorify a lot of elements, such as killing a lot of people. And actually, the next game we'll be looking at kind of definitely glorifies killing a lot of people real quickly. But it is interesting how, a lot of our favorite games, of course, are combat-based. And, Evin, actually, I think you put it out really well, is that, they're puzzles, they're strategic puzzles that we just are resolving in a way that then, of course, leads to someone's death.
Yeah, it's like Tetris, but with, like, a murder skin.
Which, it's interesting because I also make fun of, like, dating sims that are out there. And I'm like, really, who's going to be, like, sitting through this one? But at the same time, maybe we should also glorify less violent games, And so obviously it's nice to see that there is a plethora of games out there that indie game developers and big name developers are putting out games too that don't just kind of stick us in, well, you just have to kill a lot of people. And what's nice about survival games that I like, I think, one of the things that I like is that you're killing zombies, they're technically already dead, but really you're just trying to survive yourself, and there's a lot of other puzzles that you also have to solve that don't necessarily include you killing others that aren't already dead.
Yeah, well, in survival games, too, on their own right, are in a very interesting place right now. There's more and more being created every single day. Whoever was, the person that wrote that survival games are dying, they're worthless. I mean, there are a ton coming out, and people are playing them. There is an interest in them, but I think people are split very much on survival games, too, because some people love the building, love the exploration, the choices having an impact on them and what they do, having to think about how to craft things and how to defend yourself, as well as being offensive, right? Like so many games, I feel like it's all about the offense in a lot of ways. Now, Fortnite, you could probably say, well, that's actually probably the best melding of being offensive and defensive, right? Because you can build, and people use that a lot of times as shield, as cover. So I'm actually going to give Fortnite credit for that one too, because at least it's not about just going in with guns blazing. You can't always do that, because if someone's a better builder than you, they can actually outplay you and take you out. But, survival games in general, though, are getting in a weird place because some of them are becoming more PvP oriented or heavy, and it's getting to the point where in some ways the survival takes a back seat and almost becomes an annoyance to some of the players because really what they want is just a constant ongoing battle royale, which is interesting. Like Rust, I feel like in a way is kind of becoming that. Like people, like I think Rust is a really awesome game. I think Face Punch did an awesome job with the game. But overall though, like all the players that I've ever seen play the game are just like, oh, I'm starving. Oh, well, there's someone to shoot, and that's their focus, which is, I mean, it's on them, but it's like at that point, then don't play a freaking survival game. I don't know.
But I can just take all their stuff.
Yeah, and then survive even longer, right? I don't have to do the grind if I can just kill someone that has all the loot and did all the work for me.
It's like, I mean, in a way, it's sort of like a bank robber, right? Like, instead of working for some cash monies, they're just like, I'm just going to break in and get it from somebody who already has it. It's like the bank robber mentality, I guess, to some degree.
So, I mean, they're kind of in a weird place right now, and we'll see what happens there. But, yeah, at least with the survival-based at its core, there is so much more to it. And really, it should only be attacking and defending because you actually really need to, right? Like, because it has to do with your life, right? Whereas with some of these other games, it's just about being number one. It doesn't impact your character life. It doesn't impact your personal life. Maybe your ego slightly, I guess. Or viewer numbers. I don't know. Whatever. I don't really care. But, in the end, though, it's really all about, I think what those games supposed to be about is just like how it impacts you, that domino effect still. If I do this, that means that I'm taking a risk of not doing Z. If I'm not doing A, I'm doing Z. If I'm not doing Z, I'm doing A. But then with that comes a consequence. What would that consequence be? And I think that appeals to a lot of different people. So, and I think you have a really great point too. Yeah, there are a lot of things that involve shooting, killing, maiming, dismembering, beating people with the dismembered parts. In a way, it's like, yes, there is strategy behind it for a lot of people, right? And I totally get that. But I think in a way, too, it is refreshing when you could bring about a game that doesn't involve that. I love me some FPS and everything else, and I love third-person shooting games and action games. And one of my favorite games right now, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit here, Hitman, has to do with assassinating someone. But again, at least with that one, it's not about going in and shooting everyone. It's taking out that one single target. So, not that I'm trying to make it any better, but, it isn't just about the, that pray and spray sort of mentality.
Pray and spray. Oh, my. Right. And that's something that I really loved, actually, about, again, my favorite game, Horizon Zero Dawn. But you had these different types of weapons. It wasn't just, a gun. Right, you had Tripcaster, where you put up a rope so that somebody could, cause a trap for them and everything like that. So, that was fun to think about how can I use my different weapons. Like you said, it's sort of like a puzzle to figure out how to take this one target down. So that's true. Touch Me Nancy says, my cousin is a huge Rust player and he rents a server for strictly PvE. You kill too much and he'll drop the ban hammer.
Oh wow!
What's his name and how can we get in contact with him? Because we may want to play Rust on his server.
By the way,
saying that a lot.
PvE, wow. You for Rust, wow. You don't ever hear that. And I don't know if how much content is there for PvE though. I feel like I'm because they don't have a lot of enemy NPCs per se. I mean, they're kind of putting in more bandits and stuff.
It could be like Conan. I mean, you didn't really have a lot of enemies unless you sought them out.
But at least those were they did have bosses and dungeons and stuff. But Rust doesn't have that. They have bears.
I mean, that's fine. It's fine with me. I mean, one of the things I really loved about Conan was just building stuff and looking at it and being like, "Ooh, that's pretty." And then I would build more things. I'm like, "Oh, sunset's so nice from up here. I'm gonna build some more stuff."
Well, unfortunately, then for you, for our next game, there's no building involved.
This game, y'all. I don't even know.
I think we just show it. Let's just show it. Let's just launch this baby.
I'm not even honestly sure how to describe it. I mean, it's
called My Friend Pedro.
My Friend Pedro, yes. And it's just yeah,
Let's check out that beautiful game footage.
here we go.
In a world where there are games that may contain content that you might not want to show kids. So we see a person whirling on one foot shooting guns at everything around, and they have glowing eyes.
There's a banana that talks.
And there's a banana that talks over their head. So there's that at least.
There's slow-mo. There's slow-mo shooting in this game. And it's like parkour bulleting is really...
It's a bullet hell game.
Yeah.
It's like if Mother Gunship, which is a game that just recently came out, that was indie game, if it was like basically side-scrolling in a way. Except for instead of robot aliens, you're taking on other... I'm guessing human beings. They look human, sort of.
I mean, the blood that is spilling out of them, they're definitely not zombies. And
well, they will be after this.
You know, and it's what one is. Okay, I think the bullets actually ricochet off of stuff. If I'm watching this correctly, or maybe not. But yeah, there's some intense, like, killing. And dismembering.
Well, and there's it shows too that there's actually elements of the environment you can incorporate. For instance, he actually shoots someone, their head flies off, and he kicks it at another enemy. Yeah. Also showing one where he throws a gas tank and then shoots it, or now a frying pan, and bullets ricochet off the frying pan at the person. So basically, this is bullet hell meets the Matrix.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah. It's a lot of bullets and killing.
And it's coming out, of course, on what it said there was PC and Nintendo Switch. Yeah. Interesting choice, but again, side-scrolling, it actually would work really well with the platforms. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's, I don't even know. Again, it looks really well executed. You know, like, I can see that there was thought and love put into this game. So that I can appreciate, and I'm sure that... You know, that there's a certain humor in there that probably fits really well with it. I mean, obviously for their trailer, they had a banana talking about my friend Pedro. So...
Got to vote for him. That's what I hear.
So I think, you know, again, it's a cool game in terms of execution, and I'm pretty sure all the other elements. Not one I would probably put on my bucket list either.
But it's I would give it a try. Like, if I could play a demo of it, I totally would jump on it. And, you know, again, it sounds like their focus really is on the deaths and, like, the crazy ways of doing it. Actually, so much that they actually give you the ability in-game to export your coolest takedowns as GIFs and share them out on, like, Facebook, Twitch, or, Twitter, or
which is a great marketing.
Oh, yeah.
Both for the game and yourself.
Yeah,
so that's really cool.
And I will say, too, another thing to highlight is that most side-scrollers don't always feel great on a PC, right? You know, we tried Hyper Universe, which is a side-scrolling MOBA, and it was fun to a point. There are its bugs, though, and its concerns of balance in that game, but the only thing was it was weird. It felt weird with mouse and keyboard. Now, I definitely did mouse and keyboard, though. Tatiana did switch to a controller for that one. But what's being said here is that the people that played the demo at Gamescom actually said that it felt really good to use a mouse and a keyboard with this game. So that's a huge plus, too, for PC players, because you're not going to be able to play this on any other console otherwise besides the Switch. So, you know, in a way, it's like they kind of have to be really good for PC. Otherwise, it's going to kind of hurt them. Not that Switch isn't huge and there are a ton of people with them, but in comparison to the number of actual just PC players, you know, they would be turning off a real big market.
Well, and I think what's another draw of this type of game as well is that you can, I'm assuming you can just kind of pick it up and like do a level, you know, and that's that can be your commitment for the day for the game, which does make it good for a portable gaming platform, because if you're just sort of going somewhere and then you got a few minutes to kill, no pun intended, you can do that with this game.
And actually, Touch Me Nancy says, and I really like this description, it basically looks like a side-scrolling Deadpool.
Ooh, yeah. I see that.
I think that's a great way. And it seems to have the same or similar type of humor and like kind of like edginess to it in a way. So I can definitely see that as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it's, it's a game that doesn't take itself too seriously, like, oh my god, we're the best game ever, but rather than like, hey, we're awesome, come try us out, hey.
Exactly. Now, the next game is very, very different in a way from my friend Pedro.
Near and dear to your heart.
Yes, and of course we're talking about Hitman 2, otherwise known as Hitman Season 2, and we're going to be seeing some game footage right here, right now.
Dun, 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 dun. I feel like I'm watching like Mission Impossible.
It definitely has a vibe of that for sure. In a way, it kind of is, right? You're thrown into a crazy situation where it's like, take out these people in the most extreme ways or simplest ways, but without being caught, right? And you have to also capture intel, and you have to listen into conversations to get a sense of maybe how best to get to your target or your mark, or how best to escape. You've got to travel around and figure out ways of getting around security too. Like as they keep showing here, security cams and, a bunch of other ways of getting caught and, just it completely ruining your mission.
Yeah, and it's nice because here it looks like you have to assassinate a race car driver, and you can either, be part of the crew and like loosen a bolt and then the car goes into a spin, or you poison him, or you sniper him from the top of a building. So it's cool, like all these different kinds of strategies to see how you can get to that person.
Oh yeah, and I mean like in Hitman 1 right now, they have usually around like 25 different ways to assassinate your targets, and those are called challenges. But then you also have feats that you can achieve, and you could have 10 feats, you could have 25 feats, and then there's discoveries, things that you can just come across in the game, information, intel, all these different elements. And so it keeps you playing these missions over and over again and seeing it from a completely different perspective. And you find a new appreciation, I feel like, for every single level, every single time, because they've just put so much detail into this and so much thought into the different pathways and ways that people play and will play these levels. And so it's really cool to see this come together. And from what I've heard, too, is that in Hitman 2, you're going to be able to blend in with crowds, which is a big thing. Like right now, you can, like, for instance, kind of blend in depending on the disguise you have. So, like, you can, for instance, go up to a table, start wiping it down if you're a waiter. If you're a person just in the streets, you can go sit down, read a newspaper. But evidently, there's going to be group blending, too, kind of in vein of that of Assassin's Creed, where if you're around a certain group of people, you just kind of blend in. People don't just instantly hunt you down, right? And that was a problem with many of the players of Hitman. Is like, dude, I'm in Marrakesh. I've got like 150 people all around me, and there's someone that's like 300 feet away, and somehow they know exactly where I'm at. And so with this, you're going to get more blending options and more ways of also being elusive rather than just getting spotted. But the really cool thing is, and I've been actually talking about this during our game streams for Hitman, is the fact that they will be implementing these changes into Hitman Season 1 as well.
Oh!
So what you're able to do in Season 2 now, they're going to be putting those fixes and changes and stuff into 1. And that way you can go back, play all the levels again. If you've put in 30 hours, 300 hours, 3,000 hours, doesn't matter. You could go back in and have a very new and unique experience with these new changes, hopefully, from the way it sounds. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I've already put in over maybe, I think, 60 hours into the game thus far.
60,000.
No, not yet. But 60
not
hours.
Yet.
Not yet. But 60 hours in the game, and I still haven't even beat the whole thing. I think I'm still on like the third map of 6 or something like that. Not including also the additional map they added on, which was Project Zero, if I remember right. So it's going to be very interesting. And again, this is stealth. This is strategy. Yes, there is also gunplay in it, but it's not as heavy by any means in comparison to, say, like even a Deus Ex or even a, let's say, Battlefield 5. Very, 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 very different. And I don't know. I think they're doing really well with this franchise. I think they're delivering it in a really great way. that is unique, refreshing, engaging, and really gets you thinking if that's the type of game that you're interested in or feeling for, at least at the time.
And the graphics are pretty spot on.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It looks very beautiful, and yeah, it's definitely puzzle heavy, if you will. It requires a certain type of patience that that I don't have for sure. But it is interesting to see how you can eliminate a target in different ways. You know, it makes you think like outside the box in a way. You know, it's not just shooty gun.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and Kiki Slider says in chat, impalement is love. Just remember, folks. So there's not a good game unless there's impalement. Touch Me Nan says, I'm going to shoot you with my silencer. Grenade!
That's the Dos Ex Tatiana way of playing.
Exactly. Let me shoot. Ah!
I'm going stealth. Nope. Now we're just going to kill everybody in the room.
Everyone gonna die now.
All at once.
Crazy Doc 08 says clown outfit, best outfit, because you have a clown outfit, of course, if you get the Game of the Year edition of Hitman, which is freaking hilarious because the AI sees it. The AI is so well developed, and they said it's even going to be even more developed, which is actually kind of intimidating in a way, but even more developed in Hitman 2, so we can only imagine what we're going to end up facing for that release.
You're going to have to get good.
I'm going to have to get real good.
That's right. That's right. I will say, is there a game that you're most excited about out of this list from today? Is there one that you're like, just could play it tomorrow? You would.
I mean, right now probably Hitman 2. It's a game where I've actually been very tempted just to pre-order it, and I don't like pre-orders because we got super burned with Mass Effect Andromeda. And I got so pissed off with that I was just like, I don't really want to do pre-orders anymore. But I'm fairly tempted with Hitman 2, just because I see like the structure of it and how well built it is and how well built it feels. And yes, there are a few weird oddities with like line of sight and stuff like that from enemies that are annoying. But overall, though, they see those issues and I know they're working on them. So that, otherwise, hell yeah. I mean, Cyberpunk 2077. Dying Light 2 is interesting, but because I haven't played the first one, I'm kind of hesitant because I want to play that one first anyway. But otherwise, my second one absolutely would be Cyberpunk. Just because of what I've seen from CD Projekt Red, the world that they've created for Cyberpunk thus far, it just would be really nice to have just a truly epic sci-fi adventure, and we sort of got that with Deus Ex, sort of, but there just could have been so much more, and I think we're going to get that with Cyberpunk. Now, what about for you?
Yeah, definitely Cyberpunk 2077. It's number one, only one. I think at this point, I'm dying to play Detroit. I don't know what I did with that word, but yeah, I'm dying to play Detroit. And this reminds me a little bit of that as well. It looks amazing just from the trailer, which is, I think, actually in-game footage. So, holy bojangles. Doesn't sound like it's going to come out anytime soon, though, unfortunately. But that's all right. But
yeah, I mean, we might see, like, I don't know. I mean, there could be a stretch of a chance we see in 2019. Otherwise, maybe 2020. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I haven't really heard much yet, or haven't seen any real dates being thrown around. Again, they've been very tight-lipped, so we'll see. Only time will tell. I blame COD. Oh, yeah, because Touch Me Nan says I don't pre-order much either because of Call of Duty. Yeah, well, and that's another game that's coming out, right? We had the betas come out recently, open beta play for Call of Duty Black Ops 4. And the game looks very interesting, again, very pretty, feels very smooth. Gunplay looks very solid, but there are already some concerns about it already on balance issues among many other aspects. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, and really, again, as we've probably already learned, because we've probably all been burned by some game, is only time will tell, right? We just have to wait till it comes out, either try the beta, though, again, betas can be a little bit of a hype machine in their own right. And but anyway, yeah, we just have to see what happens. So We'll take it from there. Again, take it with a pinch of salt. And again, just because we're hyped about the games, look into them, keep up to date on them. Feel free to follow them on Twitter. That's a great way of getting up-to-date information, honestly, on a lot of games. Game devs love Twitter. As well as newsletters, of course. Sign up for the newsletters on their websites, get information from them. Sometimes you might even be fortunate enough to get access to an alpha or a beta of the game, too, and you can really be one of the first players involved with, hopefully, how the game develops. And I use that loosely because, again, it sometimes depends on the developer. But overall, we'll have to see. But so far, that was the top 8 best games of Gamescom 2018, brought to you by, of course, PC Gamer, with their article that they just released on it. And, of course, Gamescom ending today in Cologne, Germany. And we will see about how much of what we see here will actually be in the end game. So it's just kind of a waiting game at this point, folks. I know we're excited about some of them, but we'll just have to see what happens next. But with that, we are coming to an end of the podcast and the stream. We thank you very much to everyone who's joined us today, whether you were lurking in the background or chatting away in the chat room here today, or if you listen to us on iTunes, Podbean, or many other podcast aggregators, or even on YouTube. If there's something that you are excited for game-wise, let us know in the comments section. Again, whether on YouTube, Podbean, or what have you, let us know, or feel free to connect with us on Instagram or Twitter and let us know your thoughts as well, which is at MindMineTV. And yeah, we'd love to have more of a conversation off stream with you all about the games you're excited for, why or why not, and which ones you hope maybe they'll develop sometime in the future. But with that, thank you very much for everyone who's joined us, who's followed, who's subscribed. Again, we always appreciate you and your support. And we look forward to many, many more. And of course, don't forget, tomorrow we have a game stream. So if you love watching games, we're going to be playing even more of them, talking about Hitman. It's going to be Hitman. We're going to do Hitman tomorrow. So make sure to join us for that. And then, of course, Monday we'll probably be taking on We Happy Few, or deeper into We Happy Few, which is a great indie game that was kickstarted through Compulsion Games. So make sure to check that out. And other than that, enjoy the rest of your weekend. This is a command. Okay, no, but really try to enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.